everybody. Welcome to the Tip-Off, the show that sets the stage for all the most important news, daily fantasy plays, and bets on tonight's 5-game NBA slate and 13-game MLB slate. I am your host, Kayla Knierim. It has been a day, y'all. We're joined today by Greg Ehrenberg and Chris Spags. Fellas, how we doing?
Better than good. I always go first, Greg. How are you?
I don't know. We've never done this before. We've done a bunch of other shows. We've never done this one. I don't know. I don't know the order. You guys haven't been on together. No, we do everything else together, not this stuff.
How fun is this?
Greg, I'll let you go first. Go ahead.
I didn't have anything to say.
Well, I will then say that it was a lot of fun watching Kayla scramble around like a chicken with her head cut off before the show because I think he switched computers. Kayla puts on such a sacrifice here for the content, and that's what we like from Awesemo. We want our talent suffering as much as possible in the name of getting good shows out there. So I'm just going to applaud Kayla for getting it going and being personal of smiling. I would have just been like, I would have been muttering profanities under my breath. So that's what I'm observing here to start the show.
Yeah. No, we were able to hear you when you didn't think we were able to hear you.
Great. So let me just back up. We had a host call today and I had to shoot a video right after it for side action. So I actually even tapped out of the call a little early. It went a little long. Tried to get my video done before that. Jordan and I were also going to experiment today about the camera situation with a new computer that I've never used. So tried doing that. It's a PC. I'm used to the Macs. It's this whole thing. So I was like right up against the time today and I'm a disaster. Ring light is nowhere to be found and the HD camera's not even on, but here we are. We're gonna get through this. We've got this.
I believe in you.
I have less faith, but I'm gonna have fun either way.
I don't even have my mouse. I feel so disoriented, but it's fine. All right. Well, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for countless hours of content on the NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, MMA, NASCAR, and every other sport that is in season. Really quick, we want to talk about our sponsor, No House Advantage, who is taking a different spin on daily fantasy sports by offering player prop contests across the NBA, MLB, NFL, and PGA for cash prizes. This exclusively peer-to-peer fantasy sports platform levels the playing field and makes it easier for you to win real cash compared with your traditional DFS sites. The best part is you can join for free today. Just download the No House Advantage app and use promo code Awesemo to receive a first match deposit bonus of up to $20. Be your friends, not the house. Win big with player props today. I was also sweating, so I turned my fan on, and now I've got a little Beyonce action happening, so that's fun. All right, let's get to our bad beats. Yesterday saw another value-driven NBA slate, and the St. Louis Cardinals breaking the MLB slate. How did it go for you guys?
Greg, you want to go first?
Oh, I can go first. Oh, very poorly. Really across NBA, it went poorly. MLB, I got my ass. I've had like a very good MLB season so far. Not yesterday though. Yesterday was maybe one of my worst slates of the year. Especially because I tend to play MLB fairly contrarian, and just all of the chalk yesterday. Like Joe Musgrove was almost 50% owned at 10,200. He pitched like 8 innings and had like 30 strikeouts. Just struck everybody out. So yeah, it went very poorly for me. Like I can't even call them bad beats because they were just, I think they were justified beats. I think it was well deserved.
I will say the NBA went fine for me. And I will say the Cardinals going off like that was a bad beat because I'll tell you, I do a lot of these shows here. You guys may know, been doing stuff for Awesemo for over 3 years now. So a lot of time spent putting hours on this channel. And I do like to give my takes. I like to make my opinions heard. I often don't dig my heels in crazily here because I know with DFS, it's a world of variable outcomes. All sorts of things can happen. But I'll tell you what, I did a strategy show with this man here, Greg Ehrenberg, yesterday, dug my heels in on the St. Louis Cardinals being trash. Went multiple. Here goes.
Yeah, I said in the YouTube chat that the over under was 6.5 minutes until her camera went out, and I mean we didn't start on time. We could hear you, Kayla. I don't know if you could hear us. We just hear you grunting, but I feel
somebody
like
in the chat loves that.
Yeah. we hit the under 6.5 minutes pretty easily.
Well, that was actually my fault because I tried to get the 4K cam going. I'm on my Mac computer right now, so it is. I don't know.
So to finish my point about the Cardinals, I have to say, so first of all, the Cardinals went off yesterday. Kudos to them. It sucks because they're in a good spot again today. They're one of Awesemo's top stacks. Hate that for them as well. But I will say, out of all the takes I've had, I've never heard so many people. I had like 5 people within that are starting to hit home runs who were tagging me in the MLB home run alert tweets, were sending me DMs about it. And I will say, kudos to the Cardinals fans. They got one right here. Maybe if they do that kind of game more times, maybe they'll start to look like a better team to me. But I have to say, I have to give them credit for being right. I was wrong. It's so hard for me to admit that, but it is a case where unfortunately the Cardinals have won the day, and I just have to be here talking about them again like the cuck I am.
Cardinals fans are coming after you now. I love that.
Yeah, they were. I don't love that. I mean, I feel like I think it was mostly in good spirits. So there were a couple that I feel like had the twinge of acidity that perhaps turned into good spirits. But they care about their team. They're passionate about it, and I guess maybe not a whole lot going on in St. Louis besides that. So I don't know. Maybe that's. But that's what it was. No, I don't want to make this my thing. I honestly had no opinions about Cardinals fans until doing the show, or at least that I vocalized. And now, Kayla, because I have this medium, we have so much things to talk about on a daily basis that I apparently have an arch rival, and they are all based in St. Louis.
You're welcome. We are really nice people. If you would just open your arms to us, Spags.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're not. Look at my DMs, baby. Ain't gonna tell a different story. I don't know. This is my sassy diner waitress impression that gets a breakout too often. Ooh, oh, honey.
Greg, anything you want to add to
that? Yeah, I mean, maybe you're nice, but you don't have to operate a camera or anything. Like, I mean, it's limited skill sets.
I just didn't have the time I needed in order to prepare today, but it's fine. Let's head over to our NBA news, shall we? First up, we've got Kevin Durant and Nick Claxton will join James Harden on the sidelines for the Nets today in a game at New Orleans. Greg, how do Kyrie and the rest of the crew look with these two big names and Claxton out again?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, very disappointing news that I just found out that my attempt to get into the Topps NFT space, they've declined my attempt to purchase things off their site, so they've just refunded me. But as for Kyrie Irving, I think that he's one of the best overall plays on the slate. He's my favorite pay-up option. With no Durant, no James Harden, take them off the court for the year. Kyrie Irving, 34.5% usage rate, scores right around 56 DraftKings points. Kayla, maybe if you get closer to the camera, it'll fix it. But 56 DraftKings points per 36 minutes. Then you consider a really good matchup against the Pelicans. Going to be an up-paced matchup. So with all that considered, I have Kyrie projected for just under 60 fantasy points, and I think that he is the best pay-up option on the slate.
Yeah, I think Kyrie to me looks very strong as well. I've been a Kyrie fan previously in spots where we've had Kevin Durant out alongside James Harden. It just gives me the giggles every time the camera goes out. But I will say for me with Kyrie, I like him quite a bit here. But the guy who jumps out meaningfully to me on DraftKings, 3,900 DeAndre Jordan. And I just don't see how you don't play DeAndre Jordan a lot. Awesemo has him in for just 23 minutes today, but I think that's enough to make him usable. I feel like there's a pathway here for him getting more opportunity just because you have to have somebody who can clog the rim. And they have shown in the past that, or clog the paint a little bit more and defend the rim. I think they have shown with previous games. Again, another game where there were a lot of guys out. They played DeAndre Jordan a lot of minutes against Philadelphia. To me, I think that's a spot for DeAndre Jordan today. So Kyrie looks great. Obviously a high upside play, but the people tend to sleep on DeAndre Jordan and just not having Nick Claxton in there, as well as Reggie Perry, another guy who's out for health protocols. No other bigs to go to here. And you kind of have to have somebody you would think in there just to stem the blood loss that's going to come from Zion dunking on them over and over again.
You guys keep outing me. I'm not on the screen. They don't know I keep going in and out.
Yeah, well, I keep seeing it flash over here. It's like I'm being some sort of subliminal messaging is going on over here where it keeps blinking and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. So I think we're all suffering here.
We're just going to be on the Mac camera today and that'll have to do.
My preference is that we go towards the not working camera. I think it delivers an element to the show that we're just not getting elsewhere.
Well, I think the thing, Kayla, is that we respect you as much for your brains as for your beauty. And I think if you don't have your face on the screen, so what? They get to see more of me and Greg vamping, looking beautiful as we always do. And we just don't get the credit from the chat. I think that's what we're hoping to flip around today.
All right. Well, Damian Lillard and Yusuf are out again for Portland in a big Western Conference battle versus the Clippers. Spags, do you like CJ McCollum or any other Blazers for this spot?
So one thing that I talked about, I think it actually might have been a Live Before Lock show with Greg, or I don't know. At this point, it all blurs together. But the first day that McCollum filled in for Lillard when he was ruled out, I think we were both bullish on the idea of trying to get to McCollum. And it's been 2 games, so it's not the biggest sample size. But I do think one of my concerns about McCollum this year versus last year is that you just have other guys who can get their own shots now in Portland, in particular having Norman Powell out there. And I do think it cuts into McCollum's ceiling, at least on a night-to-night basis. Wouldn't shock me to see McCollum have more upside than he's shown. But I think for me, I'm curious to see what the ownership ends up being, because I think if he's a highly owned play, people trying to bank in on him being Damian Lillard light as he was in the past, especially last season in games without Lillard. I think that might not be the case just because of Powell taking enough off the table, getting his own shot, as well as, just not needing assists to get his shot. I think to me, McCollum maybe not as good of a play as it seems. So I think for me, it might be more of an Enos Cancer day than a McCollum day, but that's all going to depend on the ownership.
Yeah, so I agree and disagree with you. Number one, like in my initial builds I'm not getting to very much McCollum, but I disagree with the usage isn't going to be there because I mean the 2 games that he's played without Lillard, he has a 34.2% usage rate, 28.9% usage rate. The assist rate is up. It's just that the price is up also, and there's a lot of other strong options to pay up for on the slate. So I disagree that he's not getting some sort of boost from the absence of Lillard. I just think in the context of this slate, it doesn't matter all that much because I'd much rather get somebody like Kyrie Irving, and there's a bunch of other stars to pay up for. But the guy that I'm really focused on here, it's going to be Enes Kanter, who's going to have to start at center without Jusuf Nurkic involved. And last start that we saw from Kanter at center, he pulled down 30 rebounds. Not something I think is repeatable, but overall, if we look at his numbers as a starter this year, he has made 34 starts. He's averaging 35.48 DraftKings points in those starts. So underpriced on FanDuel and DraftKings, but especially on FanDuel at 5,500.
All right. Devontae Graham is questionable for Charlotte in their game at New York after Terry Rozier had one of his biggest fantasy games ever without him last time the Hornets played. Greg, how does Graham being in or out affect things for them?
I don't think this is going to matter for me all that much. It would have at a point in time, but now that the prices have kind of been caught up now for the Hornets, like Terry Rozier, there was a point where I thought he looked like a really good play, but now he's really priced up, and it's a really difficult matchup against the Knicks. The Knicks played a really slow pace, so this game is a 208 total, and that is the lowest on the slate by a really wide margin. There's the Orlando-Atlanta game is a 217.5 total, and then all the other games are at 223 or higher. So just considering the pace of play is expected to be so low and that Rozier's already been so priced up, I don't really think there's a reason to go to him, even if Devontae Graham is out.
So I think maybe this, I don't know if you're talking more about the FanDuel price, Greg, but on DraftKings Rozier at 8K, I feel like that's down a little bit from where he was upwards of, I think, 8,300 last week on DK. I might be misremembering, but I know he was at least 8,100 on one of those spots. And I think to me, really having Graham in or not is the deciding point if I'm going to get any Rozier at all, because the field does currently project to have over 15% or just about 15% on DraftKings for Rozier. And I think that number to me seems untenable. That's a lot of people chasing the upside days, chasing the ceiling days where he's not going to have 30 shot attempts and put up 70 fantasy points very often, though it is Terry Rozier, so he'll try his best. But in a pace down spot, I don't expect that to be there if Graham is in. But if Graham is out, I think you can sort of force your way to Rozier more. I think trying to get closer to the field would be a move that I would make. But to me right now, I just think if you assume Graham's in, I don't view Rozier as playable. If you get Graham out, I think you could sort of stomach that price point, whether it's a bit too high or not. I don't think it's as high as it could be if a guy just scored 70 fantasy points. Like, wouldn't have shocked me to see DraftKings bump to 9K. So I'll play him a little bit if we do get Devontae Graham out.
Richaun Holmes remains out for Sacramento after Hassan Whiteside started last game and played just 19 minutes. Spags, do you trust Whiteside with his price up or any other Kings in this home game versus Minnesota?
So I do think Whiteside's a strong play today. It sucks because his value pricing is now completely gone on DraftKings. He's just shy of 6K on there. But one thing that jumped out to me going through the popcorn machine court time for these guys is that Whiteside had some foul issues. He didn't close that game. Ended up being them going with Harrison Barnes at center. And then he also lost a few minutes to Chimezie Metu in the second half, and Metu didn't really do a whole lot with it. So I think in this spot, you probably want to have Whiteside out there against Towns. I guess the issue being that Towns can get behind the 3-point line and make it uncomfortable to get Whiteside out of the paint. But I think just based on his size, Metsu's a big dude, but he's not quite Towns big. I think that's one thing that Whiteside is going for him. So give him a few more minutes on not having foul trouble, give him a few more minutes on the chance that he can close. I think Whiteside's a guy worth getting to here just because maybe people sleep on him a bit more. Ownership projected for under 20% with a guy in Whiteside who just started last game. That's surprising to me on a short slate, and I think that would be one I'd want to get above the field on if that ownership stays steady.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite GPP plays on the slate. So the concern here is that he only played 19 minutes last start. You did mention that he got in some early foul trouble there. The other thing also that happened in that game was the Kings surprisingly got out to a really big lead over Dallas. Dallas was favored by like 8.5 points in that game, but the Kings led by as much as 21 points. And so then the Mavericks in the second half and most of the fourth quarter, they just played small ball lineup. So they did have Porzingis at center, but beyond that, they were just playing a lot of smaller guys and trying to get a lot of shooting on the court. And there was just nobody for Whiteside to really match up with. And then especially later in the game, once the Mavs started fouling to try to extend the game, that was a situation that they wanted Whiteside out on the court. So, I mean, I'd look back at the 2 games before that, even when Whiteside didn't start, he played, 23 minutes against the Wizards and 24 minutes against the Suns. So last game we played 19 minutes at a game that he started. That's just really wonky to me. So I would expect him to play more in line with the minutes he played the couple games prior, even more than that, because he is in the starting lineup now. So I think 25, 26 minutes from Whiteside isn't unreasonable. And given how good of a points per minute producer he is, I agree with Spags. I think he's going under-owned in tournaments.
Orlando will be without Michael Carter-Williams once again in their game against the Hawks, who will be without Danilo Gallinari. Greg, do either of these injuries move the needle for you in a game that could be most likely overlooked in terms of ownership?
So starting with the Orlando side, earlier in the day, I thought it was a situation I didn't really want anything to do with. But the more I've thought about it and kind of looked into their starting lineup and the rotation, I'm starting to think that Cole Anthony is actually a pretty good GPP play. His minutes trending up over the last 3 games. He played 21 minutes and moved into the starting line and played 29 minutes and 34 minutes last game. He still gets a good individual matchup going up against Trae Young. So Cole Anthony is somebody who I don't have the utmost amount of confidence in the Magic themselves or what they're going to do with the rotations. But just given the way that Cole Anthony's playing time has been trending up recently, also Magic are playing for nothing at this point in the season. So why not give their first round pick as much playing time as possible? I think there's tournament upside in Cole Anthony.
Yeah, I think Cole Anthony does stand out to me. I think Wendell Carter is playable. Mo Bamba, value adjacent play, as we say here. He's not super cheap, but I think in the mix is kind of value-ish. And Awesemo was meant for 20 minutes today, so I think that's noteworthy. And actually, kind of surprisingly, I think is projecting that Carter and Bamba could play a few minutes together. And actually, haven't looked into the popcorn machines for Orlando recently. I'll do that live before lock later today for me and EMAC. But I think that Orlando, if they are going to have any chance here of playing these guys together, just because of the, I guess, absence of bodies that they have, or just less bodies who are big and can kind of do the 4/5 role. That does seem appealing to me, but really the main thing for Orlando is I think somebody's going to have a day here. And I think just closing them off entirely is not the wisest move. And sometimes people do that when you have a team who's tanking and you have enough bodies here where you still have 10 guys, 9 guys in the rotation, most of them guards or wings, but still you have enough bodies to get there that people just kind of overlook it. And it's, I think, one to me where I just wouldn't make that mistake today. Orlando still has usable players in there, just getting some exposure to some of these guys. I think Cole Anthony being the most appealing to me just seems like worthwhile in tournaments. And Atlanta, I think their prices are mostly appropriate, but Trae Young, Capella, 2 guys we'll talk about a little bit more coming up. I think those guys are also fine, but not as meaningfully benefiting them as it is Orlando just having one less guy who's noteworthy and Michael Carter-Williams in the mix.
All right, and that'll do it for our NBA key news. Fans get access to all the great Awesemo Plus tools and content for nearly every DFS sport out there with an Awesemo Plus weekly pass for $29.95. This includes full access to all the premium content and tools on Awesemo.com, including player projections, ownership projections, our premium Slack channel, lineup builder, and much more. We also have a special MMA deal running for UFC 261 on April 24th. Get 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus MMA when you use promo code UFC 261. That's $14.98 for 30 days of Awesemo Plus MMA, which includes our fighter projections, ownership projections, and our top fighters tool, which compares projected ownership with the chances of any fighter being one of the top fighters. This offer is valid through Saturday, April 24th. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. All right, moving on to our one-on-one. In these battles between stars, which player would you rather have in NBA DFS or prop bets tonight? First up, we've got Paul George, has tournament upside, but is hard to predict in games where Kawhi Leonard is also active. CJ McCollum has yet to show a big ceiling recently in games with Damian Lillard sidelined, as in the case tonight. Spags, who wins this one-on-one, PG or CJ?
I think for me, I have my reservations about CJ, but I think taking a flyer on CJ just makes more sense to me than Paul George at his price point. This is talking about DraftKings, but CJ is still cheaper than Paul George. And I think Paul George has had some big days recently, though a lot of them came, the highest ceiling game definitely came without Kawhi Leonard. So I think you're paying a price tag here from recent performance that is not reflecting the situation of having Kawhi back in there. I'd prefer to play Kawhi over Paul George today. And I think McCollum, even though to me the rates aren't fantastic in the way that I would expect here, where Greg mentioned the usage, but the assist rate coming down a little bit, him not getting the all-around boost, I think is what I'm looking for him, that it was a gigantic uptick where he was basically at Damian Lillard's rates last year. This year, not quite the same. I think I'd still take that flyer on CJ, even with those reservations, just because he's cheaper. He also has more upside, and there's still a reason to think that he can have a higher ceiling. Whereas Paul George, I think you're just sort of hoping that some things break your way that aren't really there when you have Kawhi Leonard in the lineup.
All right. So the Clippers play today and they also play tomorrow. What do you think the odds are that Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are both playing tonight? Like, I think that somebody's getting rested in this spot, and I don't know who it is.
Who do they play tomorrow, though?
Let me check. I remember they have a game tomorrow, and I think it was a very winnable game off the top of my head, which I hate that we have the Clippers playing these situations on the late night game, because that somebody is they play home against the Grizzlies tomorrow. Yeah. I have a pretty good feeling that somebody's getting rested in this spot, and it's gonna be somebody's gonna have foot soreness at 9:55 p.m. Eastern time. And So that makes me, on one hand, I want to get some exposure to Paul George and Kawhi Leonard just on the chance that one of them gets rested. But I also have very little confidence in the situation as a whole. So right now, I'm going to say McCollum is the better play as a standalone because he's cheaper. But then it's going to be, I want to pivot to Paul George or Kawhi Leonard if possible, if we find out that one of them's resting.
Yeah, I think looking at the standings, this game looks like it matters more for the Clippers. They're 40-19. Trailblazers are, 8 games behind, I guess, 7.5, 32-24. Whereas the Grizzlies are a bit further behind. They're 29-27. So I think the one, just based on how these teams would normally approach it, maybe that one tomorrow matters a bit less. But I agree, it's the Clippers. So I think being on the ready for anything to happen here, nothing would surprise you. But I think they both play today, and maybe you rest one or both tomorrow would be what I would think against the Grizzlies too, who could also be shorthanded. So that might make more sense if both guys go today.
All right, Clint Capella is now Clint Capella is now at an outrageous price in DFS. Try saying that. Though he faces a very iffy Orlando team tonight, his teammate Trae Young is at a different position, but is now actually cheaper than Capella on DraftKings and not too far away on FanDuel. Greg, who do you want in this one-on-one between teammates, Capella or Trae?
Well, I haven't seen you with that much of an issue pronouncing names since CJ McCollum. Like that was as a Clint Capella. What's that? I'm gonna bring Clint Capella is now at an outrageous price in DFS. It's not that hard to say.
Is now at an outrageous. That's what got me. At an outrageous.
You want to give it a try, Spags?
Clint Capella is now at an outrageous price in DFS. Wow. I mean,
okay.
that just
Spags
flowed like a fine
everything,
wine.
So that's not a good example. I just talked too fast and slurred altogether.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, it's based on some of what we're seeing in the YouTube chat. I think some of them are going to be slurring words shortly, also celebrating a holiday that is today. So Clint Capella, he is at an outrageous price right now in DFS. He does have a little bit of an iffy matchup against Orlando. Between him and Trae Young, I don't really like either of them all that much for this slate, just because if I look at Clint Capella, I agree. Kayla, everything you said, I think he's at an outrageous price right now in DFS. So I don't really have all that much interest in him. Also, I think there's a lot of value at center, right? We talked about Hassan Whiteside before, so I think it's a good position to save salary on. But then as a pay-up option with Trae Young, like if I have to pick one of them, it's going to be Trae Young. But Trae Young's in the same price range as Kyrie Irving, and Kyrie Irving's a very high priority play for me tonight. I can't prioritize Trae Young over Kyrie. So with that in mind, Trae Young, if I have to pick him between these two guys, except most likely I'm going to be going elsewhere to spend up.
I think Trae Young, to me, just the fact that he's cheaper than Capella on DraftKings, is only $100 more on FanDuel. It's one of those things where Capella, we've seen have stretches where he's got this gigantic upside, and they normally are going to coincide when he's playing teams that are going to miss a lot of shots. And I have some fear. Orlando, what we talked about, they're just a bad team who's not playing to win. Their best player is a guy in Cole Anthony who just doesn't shoot the ball that well right now. As a young player, doesn't get enough spacing for himself, has not been a knockdown shooter. From what we've seen from him so far in the league with only a 48% true shooting percentage. So I have some fear that Capella is just going to break the slate, but I just don't see how you can pay him and be confident in him in that price tag. And I'd rather take Trae Young, who I think projects a little better to me in this spot, could certainly break a slate on his own right too. When you have, Towns at center, when you have also the value center plays, like you have DeAndre Jordan, you have Hassan Whiteside is a little bit more expensive. You have these guys who are a lot of ways to go at center that I think are much more logical from a DFS perspective than Capella. So if you get him in tournaments, it's fine. But I think in terms of a core play, Trae Young to me is much closer to a core play than Capella, who you're paying that price tag for him getting 20 rebounds 2 games ago, and that doesn't carry over night to night.
Someone said that I'm today's Eric on the show, and all I have to say is I will wear that with pride. Bring it. I can take it. Also,
I don't even have a rebuttal. I wanted to have something snarky. I don't even know what it is. I don't know. I don't know how to follow it up. And that's hard to say for me and Greg too, I'm sure.
No, I mean,
you're both speechless.
No, I think it's very prideful to be Eric. I mean, who wouldn't want to be Eric? I mean, I guess Eric doesn't want to be Eric, right? He's an acting coach. He's always trying to pretend to be other people. He's got his silly voices and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, I guess Eric seems to be trying to pretend to be other people quite often. So yeah, I'm sorry, that's a bad beat, Kayla. That should have been the segment to start the show. The bad beat was when you became Eric.
All right. And also, of all days to have tech issues, I'm glad it's today. Hopefully people won't remember, All right, Kyrie Irving should dominate the ball today with Kevin Durant and James Harden out. De'Aaron Fox will be less owned and cheaper with comparable upside. Spags, who would you rather have in this one-on-one, Kyrie or Fox?
I think it has to be Kyrie. And really, I think that goes for both as terms of what I talk about here, a core play or a tournament play, where Kyrie to me, I think will be in a lot of my lineups. There isn't a Westbrook today who's going to drive me away. And I like De'Aaron Fox. I think he's a very talented player, but I think the spot against the Pelicans, that's a team that does give up a lot of production, whether it be actual shooting and scoring production or just assisting guys. Both of those things, Kyrie's going to benefit a lot from not having Kevin Durant and James Harden out there. So to me, Kyrie, just one of the best plays in the slate. And De'Aaron Fox, if you get him here and there, I have no issue with it. But I think you really need to be focusing more on Kyrie, because these are the things we talk about, guys being out, guys opening up opportunity. It's very much the case for Kyrie tonight.
Yeah, I have Kyrie projected for more fantasy points than any other player on this slate. And he's also priced, a little bit lower than the absolute top pay up options, like somebody like a Karl Anthony Towns. So with that in mind, Kyrie Irving is, to me, the highest priority play on the entire slate. Talking about De'Aaron Fox, though, he's still somebody who's making it into my lineups. And to compare him to somebody we talked about before, I think that De'Aaron Fox is a better fantasy play than Trae Young tonight. So if I'm going through my top pay up options, to me, it's going to be number one, Kyrie Irving. But I think it's probably going to be number two, De'Aaron Fox for me.
All right. That'll do it with our one-on-one. Don't forget, one of the biggest edges in sports betting is always shopping to find the best line. Betting lines change by the minute and can vary greatly depending on which book you are using. That's why it's important to use Awesemo's Odd Shopper to find the best line available on a game or player prop you are betting on and give you that edge to help you beat the house. Head on over to oddshopper.awesemo.com, where we compile the best bets available for game lines, player props, player and team futures, all updated in real time. Heading over to the Diamond for some of tonight's top bets and plays on the MLB slate. For biggest bat, first up, which of these top 5 odds getters on OddsShopper do you think is the best overall bet to hit a home run tonight? We've got Mike Trout plus 270, Adam Duvall plus 325, Trevor Story plus 340, Aaron Judge plus 340, and Shohei Ohtani plus 350. Greg, we'll start with you.
Yeah. First. So here's an issue I had with Ohtani and a home run prop for today. Since he's pitching and presumably going to be hitting also, I assume that means he's going to lose out on a bat or two, because he's going to come out of the game at some point as a pitcher. And then that also means he's going to leave. He's going to lose his plate appearances as a DH. So that's an issue I have with Shohei Ohtani, is that I don't think he's going to get all of his plate appearances. That's going to eliminate him for me. So I'm going to go Trevor Story, just because that game is being played at Coors Field today. I think whenever anybody's at Coors Field, that just makes them more likely to hit a home run than most other players. Trevor Story historically has been much better at home than he's been on the road. So give me Story basically entirely because of park factors.
Yeah, I think Story being the park factors guy makes a lot of sense there. And you're getting odds basically, which are with guys who are not in Coors. And that's just, to me, is, I agree, probably the best bet on the board. But I'll be a little more contrarian here. And I think Ohtani, could they not double switch him would be the question I would have and keep him in. I don't know that they would do that, but I would say, just as a hypothetical, maybe he does still somehow get the at-bats in whatever capacity there. But the guy that jumps out to me would be Adam Duvall. And this is something I've talked about on the show before, and it's come through, I think, enough times here where it's just worth being one of our repeating themes on the show, where you have a guy with these odds up top and you have him next to Mike Trout and Ohtani and a guy playing in Coors. And then it's Adam Duvall, a guy with a 222 batting average versus righties who stinks for the most part, but he has a ton of power. 272 ISO, 7% home run rate, 7.4% home run rate. Those are gaudy numbers where it's all boom or bust. He's going to strike out maybe, though. The thing for him is he is facing a pitcher who is basically the pitcher equivalent of playing Coors wherever you go, Matt Harvey, who's just so terrible, gives up a ton of power. So I think trying to get a guy like Duvall who has a power upside, who has these kind of outrageous odds compared to what we know of him, and him being in this category with all these other guys, I think it says to me that Vegas thinks he's a really strong play, and I'd put him in for DFS. But I think for this bet too, if you're not going to take Trevor Story, who's playing in Coors, I think take Adam Duvall in the hopes that he can just knock around Matt Harvey, who everybody knocks around. So fun for the whole family.
Just like Eric.
Yeah.
So you're deflecting now. Now that Kayla's in the barrel, she's got to tease old Eric, who's not even here to defend himself. What a coward move.
Usually, though, if you say Eric's name enough during a show, he just kind of appears like he's Beetlejuice in the chat. Yeah, and then
he hears his name and he comes.
Yeah, he just kind of knows. I think it's that thing, when you're watching like a cartoon and somebody sneezes because they say their name too many times. So that just happens, and he goes, "Oh, I have to show up to the YouTube chat because people are talking about me." Then he wants to know what we're saying, and then he has to make sure that it's okay. Then he starts crying, and he has to DM all of us on Slack. It's a whole process.
I wouldn't mind a reboot of Eric Lindquist playing the role of Beetlejuice and doing his precious, doing the voice that I like to do for him especially. But I think that would be a win-win for Eric's acting career, for our personal enjoyment. We could have our first watch along here on the Awesemo YouTube channel, watching Eric do a complete reboot of Beetlejuice, perhaps by himself in his Holiday Inn motel room.
I like where head's at, Spags. Good idea. We'll suggest it. All right, let's head to biggest arm. Which of these top 5 odds getters on OddsShopper do you think is the best strikeouts over bet tonight? Is there a good under bet that you like? Here we go. We got Zach Gallen over under 6.5 strikeouts. Luis Castillo over under 6.5. Charlie Morton over under 6.5. Patrick Corbin over under 5.5. And Matt Shoemaker over under 4.5. Spags, we'll start with you.
So Matt Shoemaker is a guy that I'm intrigued by today. I wish this prop were a little bit higher because I had him as one of my low on dart throws on the Four Corners video, which everybody out there should appreciate because it's going away again very soon because I'm going to be doing some more live before locks for MLB. But I think to me, Shoemaker jumps out as being an intriguing play. But I do think going to one of the other guys who have better odds is probably the best move. Zach Gallen's the one that I would really target, where I think in DFS, he's going to look over-owned based on the top pitchers tool today. But it's still a pretty good spot for him overall. And he's been one of those guys that I think people sort of file away as like, oh, he doesn't have great strikeout stuff. Guy's at a 29% K rate since 2019. The numbers have been there for him. He's not in an oppressive matchup by any stretch today. So I think Zach Gallen to be my favorite play overall, just because the talent's there. I think it takes some stabs at Shoemaker just appeals to me today. That strikeout total seems low, and Shoemaker pitches deep enough in the games, I think, to get some decent results today.
Well, we have good news because Spags, guess who showed up just now in the YouTube chat? It is the one and only Eric Lindquist who's here because I forget though, because it's always nice when I get to see his name pop up in the chat, but it's been a minute since I've done a show with him. What does his voice sound like, Spags? Could you refresh me?
Well, here I am in chat today I'm actually getting a little more Winnie the Pooh. Here I am in chat today having a lovely day, and I hear my name called and I just had to appear myself, and oh bother.
That's great. And by the way, if your camera would have been the one to shut off, we never would have known the difference. We would have just assumed that was Eric here the entire time. Now for my prop picks here, because I don't want to forget about the actual content, what we're here for. Luis Castillo is a chalk play today on DraftKings, and I think for a good reason. He's somebody who we've had track record on for the last couple of years. He's been one of the best pitchers in the National League, and he's off to a really poor start this year, but I'm not going to look at 15 innings this season and just say like, well, that's going to override everything he's done over the last couple of years. So the velocity is still pretty high for him, and I'm just going to write off everything that's happened to this point as a fluke. Really strong matchup for him tonight against the Arizona Diamondbacks. So give me the over 6.5 strikeouts for Luis Castillo.
All right. That'll do it for our MLB portion of the show. By the way, you guys are the two that ride Eric the most, so the fact that you're on together is just taking it to a whole new level.
We weren't even doing it. You teed us up because you were tired of us bullying old Kayla. So you just said, hey, let me sacrifice poor Eric up like a stuffed pig that he is. And we just carved away pieces of old rotisserie pig Eric for ourselves. That's on you, Kayla. I feel like you're the real bully here. It's like Mean Girls every single show. I'm tired of it.
No, we do. And we do the same thing in my family too, where it's like, we'll be at a family dinner and we're always making fun of each other. And then it'll start to everybody will be turning on one person. So then whoever's getting turned on, they'll just reveal some information about somebody else at the table that everybody else didn't know to kind of try to deflect a little bit. And I feel like you did that a little bit too. There were, like Spags said, you're just like, hey, we like to make fun of Eric. Don't we go make fun of Eric? And you know that like it's like catnip for Spags now. We can't stop. So we had to jump. And then lo and behold, Eric shows up in the chat as projected.
I did no such thing.
I also love that this is the show we've created, by the way, where it's like this show now on its own stream and it just halfway exists to make fun of Eric or whoever just is in the barrel. One day it's going to be me or Greg. I don't know when that day is going to be because we're such cool, handsome, upstanding.
It's never you and Greg. It is. Let's be clear. It is never you and Greg.
No, it isn't. Because here's the truth. Here's the truth. Eric could take it. Spags and I, we're actually sensitive. So we're just happy it's never us because we would actually cry. Like Spags only, like Eric only fakes cries to us, but we would actually be very upset.
Sure.
Is that right?
We're soft boys.
Delicate souls. Souls. That's what we are.
Let's move on to our no house advantage prop or not. It's time to take a look at the NBA for no house advantages prop or not for some of their top props of the day for key players. Guys, do you like the over or under on them and how many points would you assign? First up, we've got Kyrie Irving over under 32.5 points. Points plus assist. Greg.
That's an easy over for me. So, I mean, just based on the numbers we've seen from him this year with Kevin Durant and James Harden off the court, I mean, we're looking at a 35% usage rate. Also, his assist rate goes up because the ball is constantly in his hands. I might even be inclined to take the over just on points and nothing else. Then you throw assists into the mix also, and it's a pretty easy over for me.
Yeah, this is one that I think the no house advantage numbers hadn't come up when I just didn't pull them into my sheet before doing the run sheet for the show. And I didn't know what the number was going to be. And I'm actually surprised it's a little bit lower than I would have liked, with a 73% chance of hitting from Awesemo, a little bit above that. But I think this play to me is one of the ones I have the most confidence in here. And according to Awesemo, it looks like the points plus rebounds might be a little bit higher for Kyrie, but I think he benefits a lot in terms of the assist upside. The rebounds, he does benefit a little bit too, because Harden's quietly been a monster rebounder here, not quite Russell Westbrook, but about a 15% rebound rate for him in games without Kevin Durant. The sum of that does go Kyrie's way, but I think really the assists are the ones to key in on here, where he does distribute the ball more. As Greg mentioned, he's going to score more. Usage rate for him about 35%. So like these numbers really look good for Kyrie, where he's going to hit with the overs on one of these. And I think ideally you're playing multiple no house advantage lineups, where put one in for points, put one in for points and rebounds, put one in for points and assists, and you'll have some ways to get different from the field there with the rest of the bets here that are going to be a little bit higher odds according to Awesemo.
Terry Rozier over under 28.5 points plus assists, Spags.
This is one that right now I think I would shade towards the under a little bit, because I do think people are going to buy in on the upside that he's shown recently, and justifiably so. Like, he's been really good, but the games have been without Devontae Graham, and I think right now we're to assume that Devontae Graham's going to play. So I think if that's the case here, I would take an under on a Terry Rozier prop just to get different from the field, who I think will treat that like it's a very high confidence pick. But I think to me, it's not a high confidence pick unless you get Graham out. So that to me is one leverage point to pay attention to, as people don't necessarily tend to their no house advantage lineups quite as closely as they do to a DraftKings or FanDuel. I think trying to take the under right now on the chance that Graham is in, and then going over if Graham is out, seems logical to me.
Even with, I don't have Graham in the lineup right now, and I still don't have Rozier projected all that low. We were talking about him before. I mean, I have Terry Rozier projected for 36 fantasy points right now, and that is with the assumption that Devontae Graham is not going to play. The reason being is just the Knicks present such a difficult matchup. They're one of the best defense in the league on a points per possession basis, but they also play at a really slow pace. So it's a game with a 208 total. And I mean, there are still other guys in there that are going to take shots from the court, like Brad Wanamaker. Now he's somebody who they could throw in as a backup point guard. Miles Bridges, he's seen an uptick in production lately. So just because this matchup to me is so hard, I just want no interest in Terry Rozier for anything tonight, for props, for DFS. And that's even if we don't get Devontae Graham in.
And last but not least, Julius Randle over under 35.5 points plus rebounds, Greg.
I'm going to go with the over for Julius Randle. So even though this is a slow-paced game, like I said before, every single Knicks game is a slow-paced game. The Knicks are never playing at a fast pace, but even despite that, I mean, we've seen some really massive games out of Julius Randle recently, and something else that's really been an emphasis for me over the last couple weeks of building lineups is that teams that are currently fighting for playoff spots, we're seeing usage go up for their core players. It's something we've seen as a key component of why Steph Curry is playing so well recently from a fantasy standpoint. And their playing time has gone up. And we've seen that with Julius Randle as of late. Over the last 3 games, Julius Randle's played 42 minutes, 41 minutes, and last game was an overtime game, but still 47 minutes for Julius Randle. So we look at the last 3 games, and he's comfortably playing over 40 minutes per game, and that's going to help all his counting stats.
I think there's another fun fact with Julius Randle too that maybe people didn't see, and it's something too with revenge games. People yesterday were in this chat, and I think in some of the other streams too, like Kelly Olynyk revenge game. He's going to be a monster. The guy put up 8 shots, barely did anything because Christian Wood's out there. The last 4 games of Julius Randle though have all been against teams that he either played for or wanted to play for: the Pelicans, Dallas, the Lakers, and also the Pelicans second time. And I think it's not surprising to me to see him really push that usage up, because Julius Randle is legitimately one of those guys who not only is a spiteful human being, but B, dominates the ball. Like, he is responsible for every possession. So if there is a guy you can look to in a revenge game spot, it is a guy like Julius Randle, who does a little bit of everything, gets more assist upside, can score more, can put up 25 plus shots as he did in 3 out of those 4 games. So that to me is a spot that won't be there tonight. He didn't play for Charlotte, as far as I know, doesn't have any aspirations to be there. And I think this is legitimately one case where you could point to and go like, yeah, Julius Randle definitely tried a little harder against all these teams that he used to play for, or his hometown team. And that's not the case now. He's going against Charlotte, who gives up more assisted 3s and 2s than anybody else in the league. So you could see a guy like, I don't know, an Alec Burks or whoever else is available for the Knicks really get that upside more, I think, than Randle will today. And if people box score chase, even better.
Love it. And as always, friends, don't forget to play on No House Advantage, our sponsor, who is taking a different spin on daily fantasy sports by offering player prop contests across the NBA, MLB, NFL, and PGA for cash prizes. This exclusively peer-to-peer fantasy sports platform levels the playing field and makes it easier for you to win real cash compared with your traditional DFS sites. The best part is you can join for free today. Just download the No House Advantage app and use promo code Awesemo to receive a deposit bonus of up to $20 for new signups. Beat your friends, not the house. Win big with player props today. before we get to good dog, bad dog, Jordan, no sound effect yet. I have a question for you both. And maybe it's because I'm on this computer today, but what is it about webcams or Zoom that makes you not look good? Am I just being picky because I'm a girl, or do you guys notice it too?
I mean, Greg looks fantastic, I think.
Greg is glowing. Yes, Greg is glowing.
Yeah, and I don't know. I feel like for me, people, somebody in the chat was just asking like why I always wear a hat. Like, it's funny because like I think people think I'm balding. It's like, no, I just have so much hair. I don't know what to do with it, and I don't want to don't deal with it when doing these shows back to back. But I feel like Zoom is really more, like you got to get your settings right, Kayla. You're moving from computer to computer. I think especially you probably have a higher bar for what you look like. Whereas for me, I like, cool, I'll throw the hat on as long as I don't look blatantly covered in dog fur. I'm good to go. So those are really my core tenets. But I think just the standards for you are higher, whereas it's unfair that Greg and I aren't held to the same standards, I suppose. But I think we can just roll out of bed and look like this. And you basically, I think as a DFS host, you want to look like a cartoon character every day where you basically look the same, just roll out of bed and keep that same vibe every single day.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the workings of Zoom, but I don't know, maybe it's sexist, just the entire platform. Like, I think that's a reasonable conclusion to jump to.
I mean, well, first of all, I'm a hot mess today. I didn't apply my lip gloss. Well, the nude color, not the, that will not go there. I'm shiny. I don't have all my lights. I'm not on the 4K camera, but even on the 4K camera, it's something about Zoom where I'm like, I look ugly. That's not how I look in real life. And it's annoying. I just wanted to know if guys felt the same way or if I'm just being way over dramatic.
So tell your DFS and sports betting host she's beautiful. That's what we always say on the channel.
No, that's not what I'm saying. It's something about Zoom where I'm like, that does not look like me, and it drives me nuts. But neither here nor there. It's not why we're here today, folks. We're here to talk DFS. So
oh, wait, here's a nice one. Dave's saying in the chat, Kayla looks absolutely perfect no matter what lighting there is, just saying, and not in a creepy way. And Dave's a regular one. He's normally not creepy either. So I will vouch for Dave here as one of our regulars who is not a creeper. Though, hey, shout out to everybody, I guess, shooting their shot.
Yeah, and here's another one from Chase Becker, Greg's Jufro, and then just a bunch of arrows saying it's better than everything. That was also a very nice comment.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with that. Dave, that was kind. You're lying, but that was kind. And I'm not fishing for compliments at all. So don't get me that any. Someone said I look dull today, and I agree. I do look dull today, and that's what's happening.
Yeah, but it's only because you mispronounced CJ McCollum.
Did I? What did I say?
You mispronounced CJ.
Yeah, you called him CG.
Well, I said PG or CG, and then I go CJ. I corrected myself.
Yeah, it's a tough one to pronounce. It's okay. Him and Clint Capella.
Did I say Capella wrong?
No, it was the whole sentence.
Poor Kayla. I think we should build Kayla up. Kayla, you've been doing a great job. I love the side action videos. Everybody should go subscribe to the side action channel, see what Kayla's doing besides the tip off. I think we as women need to build each other up, not tear each other's down. And I think that's what I'm here for.
Yes, women for women. Do you know what it is? It's my mind is going faster than my mouth. And I'm like reading ahead, but then my words are behind. Does that
sounds like somebody got a little early into the 420 day, huh?
Oh my gosh. See, that's the thing. It's like of all shows to have, one, it might as well be today. So let's get to good dog, bad dog. In real life, there is no such thing as a bad dog. In betting and DFS, there are a lot of underdogs who may have no chance in their game. So who's a good dog to target tonight and who's a bad one? Greg, let's start with your good dog.
I'm going with the Portland Trailblazers at home, and it's a little tricky because Damian Lillard's out, Jusuf Nurkic is resting. But with that in mind, I mean, I was talking about the Clippers earlier, how I think it's somewhat likely they're going to rest somebody. We see this from the Clippers all the time when they're playing in back-to-back set. They play today, they play again tomorrow. I mean, more often than not this year, we've seen Paul George rest on one half of the back-to-back, Kawhi Leonard rest on the other half of the back-to-back. I know that nobody's listed on the injury report right now, but we have an injury report that comes out in an hour and 11 minutes, and I would not be surprised at all to see that either Paul George or Kawhi Leonard just randomly has a foot issue, because that's what it's been very consistently, is foot soreness. For the last month, one of them has picked up foot soreness just coincidentally in every single back-to-back set. So that's where I'm going to go with the Blazers. I'm kind of guessing what I think the injury report might hold.
My good dog's going to be Minnesota. I like this spot here. It's obviously going to be one that's appealing for fantasy. Very high total here between the two teams, 238 a combined total, but only a 3-point spread here going against Minnesota. And I think this game to me is basically a pick 'em. Like, wouldn't shock me if Sacramento wins it. Wouldn't shock me if we had one of those 70 fantasy point Anthony Edwards days, even though that does get a little bit less likely with D'Angelo Russell back in the mix as well as Towns. But I just think there's a lot of ways through this game can have outlier performances for Minnesota. You have a lot of guys there who just can get their shots, whether it be Towns, whether it be Edwards, whether it be Russell, whether it be even the McDanielses of the world. Like, there's just enough guys here who get things and have random outlier days that it wouldn't shock me. So I think the T-Wolves, not my most high confidence pick here, but on a short slate, I think they're going to be in the hunt for this one, and it wouldn't shock me to see them win.
Spags, right back to you for your bad dog.
Bad dog's got to be Orlando. Like, I'll play some Orlando for DFS just because they are short on guys, but it's 12-point spread against them. There are a lot of ways, I think. Wouldn't shock me if Clint Capella had that 2020 game again. Wouldn't shock me if Trae Young went for 50 real life points today. There's a lot of ways I think that Atlanta just beats them down in a noteworthy way. So Orlando stinks. They don't want to win anyway. So I'll help them out. I'll support them like I support Kayla and go, hey, Orlando, good job. Lose and be happy today.
My bad dog, I guess I'm going to go with the Magic also. Like, they're just terrible right now. I don't even know what they're playing for. Like, there's just no motivation for them to try to win. So I guess them, but I think most of the games are lined, fairly appropriately. I mean, still 12.5 points is a lot to give. So, I mean, it's not like I would want to bet the Hawks at minus 12.5, but I think Orlando pretty unlikely to win the game outright.
All right, and to our make or break, which player or game currently looks like a make or break spot to you on tonight's slate, Greg?
I mean, it's got to be Kyrie Irving. He's in basically all my lineups right now. Like I said, I would project for almost 60 fantasy points. There's enough value where I don't think it's going to be very difficult to get to him. It's a really favorable matchup against the Pelicans. So he's somebody I'm going to tie to in most of my lineups. I understand he's going to be popular, but I think that's for a good reason.
I think I'm on the same page here. I guess I could say the Nets writ large just to be a little bit different, where I think DeAndre Jordan to me looks like a core play as well. He'll be much less owned, but I think going to DeAndre Jordan, going to Kyrie, going to some Jeff Green, if I'm trying to get weird with it, going to Bruce Brown, maybe in lineups without Kyrie, like I'm going to get some configurations of these guys because it's a gigantic opportunity going against New Orleans. There's going to be somebody on the Nets who have an outlier day when you're missing the two stars, as well as Nick Claxton, who's been a high usage guy, as well as a guy who rebounds pretty well off the bench. So this spot to me just grades out well, where there's a net player who's going to do something, and I'll have a lot of them just to make sure that I can try to capture that.
All right. Spags, tell us about one game, player, or team that you anticipate you'll have a lot less interest in than the rest of the public for your fade of the day.
I think so. It's sort of tough because the ownership to me looks mostly flat, but I think it's got to be Julius Randle for me on DraftKings. His price up over 10K. And as I mentioned earlier, I just think those rates for him the last few games a bit inflated by late. I think there's not having Alec Burks, I guess, is one part out there. I mentioned him earlier. I forgot that he's not going to be in because he's in health protocols right now. But still, like, there's enough guys here where I think the shot's just flowing more to Derrick Rose, flowing more to Reggie Bullock or Elfrid Payton. And it sort of naturally has to happen because Randle was so ball dominant the last few games. I think sort of the upside's been priced out, and maybe he has one more great day, but I just think in DFS, taking a guy who's now up over 10K because he had 4 good games in a row that you weren't a part of, tends to be not the way to win. At least that's how I view it. So I think he'd be the guy I'd go under on.
It's Terry Rozier for me. I talked about him before, and right now Devontae Graham's status is up in the air. And we said before that obviously his status individually matters a little bit with Devontae Graham. I think people are going to want to get to him if Graham is out. But for me, I'm not going to have interest if Graham plays. I'm not going to have interest if Graham is out. So just a really tough matchup when everybody goes up against the Knicks. It's usually not something I try to roster players against.
All right. 3 minutes left to go, guys. Any final thoughts you want to add? Any fun stories you want to tell us? The floor is yours.
Is that related to, did you see what I typed in the YouTube chat, or is that unrelated?
What did you say?
Oh, no, just people were asking me if everybody in my family had Jew froze. And I said no, but there's other people who have been in my life that have had Jew froze at one point who, I don't know, maybe I have relation to, but not in my immediate family.
Oh, are you doing one of your classic "my mom slept with another man" bits?
Oh, more or less.
Okay. Oh no, it's gonna get.
I don't know if that meant you were dating like a Bob Ross lookalike, which, hey, more power to.
No, just the guy who used to, like my dad would go away and there'd be a lot of there'd be a lot of housework that needed to be done, and you'd hear him hammering. I think the floors were broken a lot. So I mean, I kind of look like him, but no, nobody in my family has a Jew fro, to answer the question.
Oh, we are also all in legal marijuana states now because New Jersey has passed theirs and is legal. That's where Greg is. Kayla and I both in California. So I think we are well equipped to say I'm excited for the day. I even know it's just going to be probably mostly another day for me, though my girlfriend got some fun stuff from Ease that I'm sure I'll be doing. So I wish everybody out there a happy and healthy 420 and one that doesn't include binging yourself to death like I've been doing the last few days. And then you want to, then you hate your face on Zoom. So I guess it brings it all full circle.
Mine has nothing to do with weed. It's just the way I look, I guess. I don't know. Luckily, yes, this show happened today and no one will remember it. That is my hope. But well, guys, this was fun having you both on for like the first time ever. We need to do this more.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just
don't sound so excited.
No, I wasn't sure if you had enjoyed it or not, but yeah, I mean, even if we get a 4-man booth, bring Eric in too. We'll get a full like.
Now
You
we're
want to bring me in, do
talking.
you? I'll be there in 5 seconds flat. Is there camera time for old Eric? Sure, I'd love to come in.
I have nothing to add to that. All right, this was great. Spags, Greg, thank you both. Thank you all for tuning in and sticking with us. Wow, this show was something. I'll be better tomorrow, I promise. I'll have my 4K camera back. Everything will be great. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. MLB Live Before Lock is up next on a different stream. I'm Kayla Knierim. We'll see you at 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. The tip-off. See you then.